I should put this right there.
Alrighty. Welcome everyone. We're just gonna have everyone kind of file in before we get started. And we'll do a quick introduction, then we'll get right going.
There are people on here because it's the best book I've read in a long time, people.
I've said this before that we need to have like Jeopardy music at this part, but I love that Mira's just like pre-commentating, like, town crying the book.
Not wearing pants.
Hype woman.
Alrighty.
I like that. Thank you for putting the book out there. I don't even have a copy with me right now.
Oh.
So I'm like, we're such vagabonds right now.
And you did all the work. You're done.
Yeah, that's true.
Are you gonna read any?
Oh yeah, I was gonna read a little bit. We can start off with that.
I wasn't sure because you said you didn't have a book on you.
I have it on my computer. So
okay, cool.
In fact, now with Zoom, that seems to work best.
Oh yeah. Good call. Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight. I'm Gracie. I'm the events coordinator for print. A few little housekeeping details before we get started. If you have any questions, please feel free to enter them in the chat box, which is on the bottom right of the screen, or in the question and answer function, which is right on the bottom bar. If you'd like a copy of The New Wilderness, I'll include the link to the print page, so you can just click right on through. And now for our speakers. Mira Ptacin is an award-winning author based in Maine. She's the author of the acclaimed genre-bending book of history memoir, The In-Betweens, as well as the memoir, Pour Your Soul. Diane Cook is the author of the novel, The New Wilderness, which was longlisted for the 2020 Booker Prize, and the story collection, Man vs. Nature. She lives in Brooklyn, New York with her husband, daughter, and son. So please join me in virtually welcoming Mira Ptacin and Diane Cook.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. Thanks for coming.
So everyone, what we're gonna do is, the usual, if you've been to book launches, Diane's gonna share us an excerpt of this Amazo book, and then I'm going to ask a few questions. And like Gracie said, if you have some questions as they pop up, you can type them into the chat box, or that's the only thing. Oh, then there's a Q&A icon too. That I believe those will go to Gracie, but please ask questions. Now's your chance. This book's amazing. And we have the author here.
Yeah, I really wish, thank you for coming. I set up these readings like back in March, hoping that we would all be in person at this point, because I love coming to Portland, Maine. However, here we are. I'm not in Portland, Maine. I'm not even in Brooklyn, New York right now. So, but I'm just gonna channel my Maine-ness, and we'll have a nice time. So I'm gonna read a little bit from a section of the book that comes in about like 50 pages in, and it kind of gives an overview of the people and where they have come from and what their early life was like, and where they've been led to now. If you don't know anything about the book at all, you might be confused, but it's okay. You can just let it flow. This is called In the Beginning. In the beginning, there were 20. Officially, these 20 were in the wilderness state as part of an experiment to see how people interacted with nature, because with all land now being used for resources, oil, gas, minerals, water, wood, food, or storage, trash, servers, toxic waste, such interactions had become lost to history. But most of the 20 didn't know much about science, and many of them didn't even care about nature. These 20 had the same reasons for people have always had for turning their backs on everything they've known and venturing to an unfamiliar place. They went to the wilderness state because there was no other place they could go. They had wanted to flee the city, where the pollution was poison to children, the streets were crowded, filthy, where rows of high-rises sprawled to the horizon and beyond. And because all land that hadn't been subsumed by the city was now being used to support the city, It seemed everyone now lived in the city, whether they wanted to or not. So while a couple of those 20 had gone to the wilderness for adventure and a couple for knowledge, most fled there because they believed in some way their lives depended on it. In the beginning, they had shoes and army-issue sleeping bags, tents, lightweight titanium cookware, ergonomic backpacks, tarps, ropes, rifles, bullets, headlamps, salt, eggs, flour, and more. They walked into the wilderness state, made camp, and on their first morning, they made pancakes. They sprinkled sugar on them. They flavored their early stews with bacon. None of that stuff lasted long, though. The first day felt like a vacation in a wondrous new place, and that feeling didn't last either. In the beginning, their skin color matched that of wood pulp, riverbed sand, wet tree roots, the rich underside of mosses. Their eyes were brown, their hair was dark, they had all 10 fingers and toes. Their skin was unscarred. The dangers of the city had never been from scrapes and cuts. In the beginning, they were written about and reported on back in the city. A group of people who'd forsaken civilization to live in the wild. Why would anyone do that? Op-eds wondered what would happen to them. Mainstream journalists wondered what they were running from. Alternative publications wondered if they knew something everyone else didn't. Regular people sent them care packages of homemade cookies, coffee, hot dogs, generally inedible by the time they opened them. Batteries, toothbrushes, pens, useless items for people attempting to live primitively. Someone sent them a 40-pound cast iron pot. It was a family heirloom. It had been in his closet for years, he wrote on the card. He couldn't bear to throw it out. He hoped they would have some use for it. The ranger took a picture of them pretending to struggle to lift it. They were smiling and making pained faces. They sent the picture as a thank you of sorts, but also as a way to tell the sender what a ridiculous gift it was for people who walk every day and carry what they own. With little discussion, they voted to leave it behind. It was an obvious decision. But that night they cooked in it, and they've been carrying the cast iron ever since. I'm gonna stop there.
Excellent. So I have a quick question. I know this because I know you, but can you tell since most of the people who are in this Zoom are probably in Maine or from Maine, I'm thinking, what is your connection to Maine?
I love Maine. it's my spirit animal, I guess, because now it's an animal. I used to teach at this program called the New England Literature Program, and it used to take place in Maine on Lake Sebago. Mm-hmm. And so ever since I was a student at this program, and so when I was like 20, I came to Maine as a student on this program, like fell in love, moved to Maine after college, tried to like live my life there, couldn't figure out how to like start a career there, left, but then kept teaching at this program and would like return every year. And then like I made my husband come to Maine all the time, and then so much so that like we got married in Maine. Like it's just like Maine is my place, even though I can't figure out a way to live there. So
we'll find a way.
Yeah, thank you. I'll move to Peaks Island.
Hey, there's houses for sale. They're going fast. So my first question to you is, well, this book is coming at such a crazy time. I mean, it's an important book. It's a prescient book, which I'm honored to be a part of, because I just want to lick this book. It's so wonderful. And it's something I've been thinking about for a while about, it seems like you're almost foreshadowing humanity. When did you come up with the idea of this book, the concept of this book? Was there like a single moment that you're like, boom, this would be interesting, I'm going to keep running with this? Or are there different little instances, or were you more like, humanity is effed and I can see where we're going, so I'm going to try to come up with a story that kind of sends a message? Or was this something you were thinking about with your first child? Like, I want to write a story about my child in the future. Like, how did it all come to be? And then the follow-up to that is, when did you know that you were going to actually do this? Because I know, like, with my last book, I kept putting it off and putting it off. And it was, for me, it was like, you get a job or you actually write the book you said you're going to write.
Right, exactly. Like a little bit of everything in the first question. I came up with so I wrote a book of short stories and that came out in 2014 called Man v. Nature. And when I was working on those stories, I had the idea for this book, which I think makes sense. Like, this book feels like a piece of the story collection, even though it's like this much bigger experience. And it's like different in the way that the stories like use a bit of fabulism in them to like explore their themes. And this one, I always knew I wanted it to be like a straight ahead, this could really happen even though it's speculative and not happening currently. So I had the idea for it, and this was back in like 2012 maybe. Yeah, around 2012. But I didn't want to work on it. I just had the idea. I got really swept up in the idea. It felt like a good idea. And the idea was like something slightly different than what it is now. And the idea was like basically just the premise. Like, what if there's just this one huge wilderness area left and nothing else? And what if there's like a group of people who has to live there for like whatever reason? I hadn't figured that out yet. And the rest of the world is like kind of like a terrible version of what it is now, like all manufacturing, all city, like all just like you just want to get away from it. And you can't, except if you're one of these people, and you have to do it in this really extreme landscape. So that was like the premise and the idea. So I took all these notes to myself for a couple days, and then I put it aside because I was writing stories and I was really invested in the stories and I wanted to keep doing them. I didn't want to like get all like wrapped up in a novel project all of a sudden. So when I finished the stories, I went back to it. I kind of knew I always would. I wanted to. So like it's been there in my head, and I would like come back to it at different points. You know, I'd be like writing stories or working on whatever, and then one day I'd suddenly be like Agnes or B, and I would just be like writing notes to myself as the character. Something would come to me that would like eventually happen in this book. So it was like always there in my head. I knew I would always come back to it, and I just kind of had to. And I think there were like panic moments when I was writing it that, you know, everybody has a book in a drawer, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone has like an abandoned project. And I kept worrying, like, what if this is going to be my abandoned project? Like, what if I'm writing this whole thing and I'm spending like, 5 or 6 years on it, and then it's nothing in the end? Like, it's like Looney Tunes. Like, I give it to someone and they're like, you're crazy. They thought that this was a book. But that didn't happen. Thankfully. Yeah. But like I had all those thoughts when I was going through it. So like I knew I wanted to do, I always knew that it was gonna happen. I just didn't know if I was gonna pull it off.
How long did it take you to actually write it?
So when I had the idea in 2012, I went back to it like officially in 2015. And then I'd call like the first couple years like my dicking around with it years of writing. Like I just wasn't being very productive. Though like I think I was being productive in my head. I was like working out a lot of shit. And then I spent the last couple years, the last 2 years of it, like really writing kind of every day. and really discovering something about it that I hadn't discovered before, where like, you know, like that was the time when, you know, I finally like got the voice of Agnes down, and I, you know, I could just like kept bringing it past the point of premise into something that was like actually about people.
Yeah. I can't imagine like rushing to create a three-dimensional character and like, okay, by the end of today, I have to figure out completely who this character is. That would just, it would be a stereotype.
Mm-hmm.
Stephen, to piggyback on this, Stephen Strand is asking, do you write on a specific schedule or write when you feel inspired and keep writing until you're exhausted? And I'll add on to that one. How about as a parent? How do you do it? And financially.
Financially. So I don't write every day. I write when I can and when I need to. I tend to like walk a lot as part of my writing. And as a parent, I relied on childcare like a lot. And in fact, so when I started this book, I didn't have kids, and
oh, you didn't have kids?
No. So I had my daughter in 2018, and that was like the final year of writing for me.
Whoa.
And I had pushed the deadline a lot. So I like sold this book before it was written. Basically, I had like a 2-book deal. This is like so like in the weeds for anyone other than people who talk about book deals. But so I always had a deadline. I was always pushing it. I was always missing it. And then I had this kid, and I suddenly was like, finish the fucking book, you know, just like you have to, even though you have this competing desire now, which is to spend time with your child. Suddenly that made me like intensely more focused on actually just finishing the book. And so it's weird, but then that first year of her life and that last year of me writing the book was like probably the most intense. And I, you know, have a great husband who totally gets it and loves taking care of the kids when he can. And then we relied on daycare. Yeah.
I'm not gonna lie, that helped me too when I was working on my book.
You can't do it alone.
No, you can't. So this is from, I'm not quite exactly, Robert Vettas.
Peace.
Yeah. Sorry. Hi, Robert. How does your new amazing, spectacular novel connect to how nature is portrayed in your short stories like Bounty?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, so I had the idea for all of these like kind of in the same time. So I think they're all playing around with an idea of nature as a kind of secret menace. Like I'm very interested in the idea that like we romanticize nature and the wilderness, and the lives of animals, and everything that's not human always seems like so much easier than being human, which like I'm not totally going to argue with. I think being humans can be really hard. But I think all of it's really hard, and all of it is complicated and complex, and I like giving the world its due. Like I want everything to be able to be as complex as it wants to be or can be. So I connect all of these things together in that they're exploring that like this spectrum of humanity as something that's animal. Like we're animals, we're on the same spectrum as animals, we're just at one level, and all of these like rules and civilizations and societies that we dream up and technology that we dream up that we think makes us different, we're not that different. So in a story like Bounty, say, it's all about like the group versus the individual, and that's just an animal idea. That's just something that's instinctual in us. And I like playing with these instincts and putting a group of humans who are pretty modern in a wilderness setting where they have to suddenly be primitive and take their like cues from the natural world was like the farthest I could push that idea or that kind of thought experiment of what I was doing a little bit in the short story collection.
Mm-hmm. You know, so I know a little about you because we've had pizza together once at Salt.
I read your first beautiful book.
Pardon?
And I read your first book, and it was beautiful.
And I gotta send you my other one. I'm gonna get your address later. The cover glows in the dark. That's all you need to know. So I was learning more about you just by Google stalking, and I did read about your time, like how you teach at this it's here in New England. How you
teach, that's the main thing I was talking about. Yeah,
amazing. And also I read in your acknowledgments, when I kept reading when I didn't see my name in there, but when I was reading your acknowledgments, you were thanking like different, I think you're thanking different like conservation groups or nature groups. But if you are writing this book versus say, a city person who doesn't like camping, I don't know if the books would be as detailed. So how much of your motivation and the story question or the thesis or the vibe you're trying to get out in your books, how much is that related to nature? And you may have already answered that by saying, you see nature as not being so romanticized, but it's primitive. But are you trying to make a point in your stories because you're spending so much time in nature? Is it something you feel like you understand more because you do spend a lot more time in nature? And are all your books and your stories going to be about, a human's relationship with nature?
That's a really good question.
Thank you.
I think part of the reason, so I find myself in these natural settings. I live in Brooklyn. It's baffles me to this day that I do, but I do. It seems totally counter to everything that I actually think I'm all about. So I think there's a lot to unpack there, but I'm not going to. I find myself in these natural settings, I think, because I romanticize nature and I romanticize the wilderness, and I'm always trying to escape, I gotta get away from this humanity, and then I gotta go be alone on the edge of a playa, where there's literally not another person for 50 miles. And that's my dream. And then I get there and I'm terrified always. And I love it. But it's so much. And I think that's just a thing that I have always been fascinated by. Or so you get there into this beautiful place and you're wandering around soaking in the beauty, and then you see something really horrible. You witness something really harsh and cruel in nature as you're soaking in this wonderful romantic experience. Yeah. And I think so it's this me grappling with my own visions of wilderness and what I've come to learn they are. I still think it's a wonderful thing to go out and be in the woods. It's wonderful. It's just it's a complex thing, and I like playing with it in my head. I like thinking about it constantly. Maybe because I'm trapped in Brooklyn, I just want to think about nature all the time because I don't see it as much in Brooklyn, although it's there too. And
yeah,
I actually was thinking about what will my next project be, because I do feel like there are a lot of ideas that I was working on in these two books that are because they came to be at the same time, all the ideas were coming out at the same time. I feel like I've now gotten to a point where I can come up with new ideas, and so I'm like freed to think about whatever I want. And I've been wondering, like, are you still going to be as connected to this like nature question as you have been, like, or are the ideas that you had in like 2011 done? You know, like these are basically like ideas I've been mulling over for the past decade.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll be thinking of something else, but I don't know that I will. I mean, it's like something I think about all the time.
There's like humans and things that they've built, like cities, or there's nature. I guess you could think about outer space if you need something totally different.
That's true.
We have a question from Josie Sabara, but real quick, I want to ask you, have you ever seen the show Naked and Afraid?
Well, yes, but I think like really I didn't understand what it was for a long time, and then I watched it and I was like, holy shit, this is like exactly what I'm doing. I find it, yeah, I've watched it a couple of times. I actually even know someone who was on it, but I didn't know, like I knew it like after the fact. Yes, I've seen it a couple of times. It's so fascinating.
It's our with the beginning of the pandemic, my family, my husband and my 7-year-old and 4-year-old, Theo was 6 and 4. We watched it every night. And it was like, I was like, this is our education. And it's such a crazy show because it's so real. They're naked and they're in the woods with like one. Yeah, it's so many mosquitoes. Like, so Josie, just hearing you talk about writing, Diane, makes me want to pick up a pen and type some things. I'm wondering, what are you thinking about working on next? Is it too soon to ask if you'll write another novel or more short stories? We want them, no pressure. We sort of start talking about that.
She is, Josie and I would text each other like every day for years, being like accountability writers to each other. Like, how are you doing today? Are you working?
Oh, sweet.
How many words did you get? Because we're both working on novels, and it's just like the novel is so long. It's such a slog.
Yeah.
You need someone to like commiserate with, and to just say like, yes, I only wrote like 500 pages or 500 words. That's like 2 pages of like, I have like 400 more to go. Or like when you're drafting a book, you know, as you know, it's like so many more pages than that. But what am I working on next? I don't know. So yeah, I don't know yet. I don't have the idea yet. One thing I'm trying to write a screenplay for this book.
Has it been optioned?
Yes.
Yes.
It got optioned to be a TV show. I mean, that's like, will it happen? Probably not. But I'm gonna write it, the pilot. And partly because like when I got finished with this book, I just thought the world of it is so big, so much of it is like has been cut at this point, and these characters still feel so real to me. I don't want to let it go. I want to keep working on it, and I want it to like have a different life. So I thought, well, okay, I'll write a screenplay and we'll see what happens. So that's what I'm working on next.
That's a totally different beast. I can't even imagine how. Do you know anything about writing screenplays?
No.
Good, I'm glad. Okay, that's good. I appreciate your honesty.
I didn't know anything about novel writing either, so.
I know, you're killing it. This is from Liberty Hardy, who is the most avid reader I've ever met. She's amazing. Hi, Diane. I loved your book and your story collection. Pardon?
Thank you, I said.
Oh, yeah. My question is, what is your reaction to seeing the fantastic teal? Yes, what was your reaction to seeing the fantastic teal and pink cover for the first time?
The fantastic what?
Pink and teal cover.
This time? Oh, I loved it. Well, so the cover thing was, there were like a lot of options at some point in this process. And when I saw that one, I was like, Wow, I love it. I love it so much. At first it was a black and white, like it was like just a photo of the birds against the background. And I really liked the birds the best. I felt like they evoked something that was really particular to the book. And then the person who designed the cover came back, but it seemed too much like a nonfiction nature book.
Yeah.
She came back with this, and which I really loved because most of you haven't read it yet. There's this girl in the book named Agnes, and she's like this beautiful creature of the wilderness. She's come to the wilderness state when she's really young, and so she's very, it's like she's like a native speaker to the natural world. But before she left, she had maybe 4 or 5 years in the city, and there are all these little details about her life there that she remembers, and it's her pink room and her pink bedspread, and she had nail polish when she first showed up at the, she was a girl, and it's my little homage to this kind of girlhood that she also was having. And now she's kind of this amazing wilderness tracker kid who's so much a part of the landscape that she's in, but she's also this little girl, and all the things that come with being a little girl anywhere, the idea of liking pink, or I don't know, it just, so when I saw that pink, I was very touched by that. I don't even know if it was on purpose, but I really liked it.
Yeah. And another question from Liberty: what are you reading now? Who do you read for inspiration? And what's your favorite underappreciated novel?
Underappreciated. This is gonna sound crazy to think that this novel is underappreciated, but I'm gonna say The Grapes of Wrath.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's not underappreciated at all, but I feel like everyone reads it at the wrong time.
Yeah.
They have a bad idea of it because they had to read it in high school, and maybe the last scene is kind of corny, and that's all they remember, but I read that book every few years, and it always gets me so fired up, and it's always of the time, and no matter when I'm reading it. So I almost wish students would have to approach, be introduced to it when they're ready. You have to take a test before you can read The Grapes of Wrath to know whether you can handle it or not.
Totally.
One of the, how do I say this? One of the books that I'm starting to read right now is the C-Pan Zhang's How Much of These Hills is Gold.
Yeah.
And I had it pre-ordered. I was so excited for this book, and I had it pre-ordered. And now we're both on the Booker long list. It's really exciting to me. I don't know her, but I was so psyched for this book. I just had a baby though, so my brain is utter garbage, and reading is hard right now. But that's the book that's up next for me, and I'm very excited for it. Have you read it?
I haven't read it yet, but it's on my list too. I've heard amazing things.
Yeah, it seems so good.
I was intimidated just by her author photo. I'm like, damn. I just will imagine what's inside her head.
I know.
But, I mean, every book on the list right now is so wonderful. Who do you read for inspiration was also Liberty's question.
Oh yeah. I read a lot of nonfiction. I mean, for these stories that I wrote and this book that I wrote, a lot of nonfiction, any kind of nature writing, anything I was grabbing, because I would always find some weird fact about animals that I would be able to, or the natural world that I would be able to use in some way. And so yeah, I found, and I just people grappling with open space and open land was just where my head needed to be. But my big one of my biggest inspirations has always been Amy Bender. I just really love her. I mean, I don't think anything that she writes is like this book I've written now, but I found her at the exact right time when I was younger and thinking about if I were a writer, what would I write or what would my voice be like? And she, like, her existing was so good for me. So she's kind of my person.
That's amazing. I just finished Mira Jacobs' Good Talk. Thanks. I think it's called Good Talk. Good Talk. Do you know that one? Have you read it yet?
I haven't read it yet.
Oh, because that's a good one to read when you can't like shut everyone out and focus. Like, you know, my kids were swimming, I could read it. They're playing in the room, I could read it because it's a graphic memoir and it's fast and the pictures are a little more telling than the words. So I highly recommend that one too.
Oh, I'm reading Margot Livesey's The Boy in the Field right now because we have an event this week together. But I'm listening to it. I've never done this before.
Oh yeah.
I've never done it, but I don't have hands. Like, I just, like, I'm
nursing
my kid.
Yeah.
And the listening to it has been really good. I think I thought that was, like, I forgot that I'm reading that because I'm not actually reading it. It's like I'm having this other experience of it. It's really good.
Yeah. We don't have any more questions, but I have one more question. Because I always think I'm doing it wrong. What is your writing process? I know you probably hate this question, but what is your writing process like when you sit down? Are you, sentence by sentence? Because your sentences in this book are so beautiful and just so they end on the right breath and they end that, there's a variance in length and it's just wonderful. They fit the mood. How do you do that?
How do I do that? I play, I guess. I'll say that. I play. I've never written on a sentence level. I know that doesn't make a lot of sense, but some books you read and you're like, the sentences. And some books you read and you're like, that's a bonkers book, so much happens, ideas, and then some other books you read and like the ideas. And I've never been like a sentence level writer. It's not where, it's like writing the sentences is not the thing that drives me to want to like be a writer. And I think there are writers for whom that's true though. Like constructing and like using language is the thing, and that isn't for me. That said, like, I take it seriously, it's important to me, it's just not the thing that makes me get up and do it. So the thing that makes me get up and do it is like following my brain, whether it's doing something cool or doing something dumb. Like, I just want to let it do what it's doing and let it out and play and take up space and like experiment and make mistakes and be stupid. And I love throwing stuff away. I don't, I think that's great.
I can't believe you just said you're not a sentence or like a sentence level writer, because your sentences you just nail it.
Well, it matters to me, but it's like,
yeah,
it's not what, if I had no ideas in my head and just like,
yeah,
I just like, I don't know. I think to some people, like, the sentence level is the thing, and it isn't for me. But I like a good sentence, although I don't understand what makes a good sentence at all. I think I just like what I like to hear. Oh, one of the things that I do though that might help or like makes it seem like this is particular to me, or it sounds like my writing, or like the sentence, I don't know, like works on the page in some different way, is like I read a lot of stuff out loud to myself. So there's like a a pacing to it that I think comes from my radio days. And I like that there is I try to write sentences, and I try and write things that seem like something you could hear or be said out loud. Oh, I think that we're all frozen, maybe. Whoops. This is frozen. Did I break it?
Popping back on just in the meantime, just subbing in for Mira. I'll ask one more question while she hopefully comes back on.
So that was her, not me.
Yeah, not you. We're good. All right. This is also from Stephen. When you're an author, how do you shut your mind off to ideas for your future writing, or do you just accept that you can't shut it off?
Oh, I can't shut it off, and you shouldn't either. So I always have documents open. I started working in Scrivener, which is a program.
Yep.
I didn't finish the book in Scrivener. I got too overwhelmed by Scrivener and all of its possibilities, but it's very good for like drafting, because when you're drafting, there are so many ideas coming in, and they're not always for the book you're working on, just because like your brain is all over the place. So Scrivener would just let me just very easily open a new document and keep it in a place for me. It was so easy. And so I'm always like opening new documents and being like, idea for this, or, like I would jump around scenes, I would jump around chapters, I would write the end of the book, I'd write the middle of the book, I'd write the beginning. Like I was just all over the place. And I let myself, until I didn't let myself. Like at some point I had to like pull it all together and get organized. But even then, like I would still, if I had an idea for something else, there's time. There's no clock on you writing your thing. You just write your thing. And if you have other ideas that take you out of it for a couple of days, I think that's fine.
I have a follow-up question. How do you know when it's time to, at least that you have to buckle down and organize onto that one idea? Do you reach a certain scene? Do you just have an intuition about it?
Yeah, I think it's like getting taken away, like when I would keep writing the same thing, it would be because like I had to. And even, usually my digressions wouldn't take me too far afield. Like I wouldn't end up writing a new book, say, like, right. That's not the thing that always like takes me away. It'd be like an idea for an essay or an idea for a short story. And it would be like, I'd write the premise down and then I'd jump back. With this book, I remember like I had the idea when I was writing stories. I don't know if I said this earlier. And I took like 2 days to just take a bunch of notes and have like every idea I could possibly have to like capture what was exciting about the idea to me. Mm-hmm. And then that ended up being basically my outline for the whole novel. But I just took the time to do it. I didn't want to lose it. You don't want to lose something. So I think rules of like keeping yourself focused on one thing mean you end up losing other things. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
No, that makes sense. And I lied. I have one more question. One more question from the audience.
I love it.
This is from
lots of
so you never know.
I'm very happy.
So this question is from Talia. How did you know when you were done with the novel?
I just mentioned that I had an outline, and I've never used an outline before in anything. So I knew when I was done and that I kind of like, I got to where I needed to get to. Of course, you're like done in different stages when you're writing. So hi, welcome back.
Sorry, sorry guys, I'm on my phone. The kids probably just unplugged the internet or something. I don't know.
That's fine. I was certain it was me because of all of my trials that I've been going through. So I'm talking about how I knew I was done. So there are all these different stages where you're also done. Like I finished the book and I had a totally different ending for a while. And then I gave it to a couple readers, and then I just knew it wasn't working, and I rewrote the ending. Interesting enough, I rewrote the ending to be more in line with the outline that I had, or with the ending I had in my outline, and this new ending had been like some digression. So I think you always know a little bit where you're going. At some point I had to like gather all of my pieces. I thought I was just going to be writing forever. I had to gather all of my pieces. This is when I went to my Word doc and got out of Scrivener, because I had all of these pieces and I gathered them all. I put them in some kind of order. I thought I was years away from finishing the book. And then I did this and I realized, oh my God, you only have like a quarter left to write. You're like actually almost there. But I had no idea because I was kind of all over the place. So that's like 3 different answers. So I had an outline of where I was going, but I also think you get close to the end and you're like, you feel like you're there. But then I'll say, like, I also finished the book and then wanted to keep writing it, so I'm writing a screenplay now. So like I'm clearly not done with the book. I'm done with the book, but I'm not done with the story or the world, I guess.
Yeah. And then, you know what, maybe, you know, in 10 years, there, and this is going to be a question I have for you, the story will actually become real.
No, well, when in like 2012 and 2013 and 2014 and 2015, I was like, this book is going to be a hard sell. Are people even going to like, it's just going to seem bonkers.
No.
I think you know where I'm going. And in 2016, I was like, oh my God, this isn't like, there's something about the way this president operates and the way that land deregulation is like a big secret idea that's like pushing the book forward. And once this president got going, I was like, oh shit, man, this book could actually happen. Whereas before, it did seem like a big thought experiment at some point. And it doesn't seem like that anymore. And not just because of this president. I mean, it's because of the way all our government and our priorities is set up. But he was really pushing it in this way that I hadn't seen before, or maybe just that it was very obvious.
Yeah.
Like just today, the Arctic refuge, like he is pushing ahead with like opening that up. And that was definitely one of the inspirations for this like land wilderness area that, you know, gets opened up in some way. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think you need to keep writing these stories.
I like them.
In a way, it's kind of, I mean, I think of it as activism. When I'm reading this, I'm like, wow, I feel so guilty for throwing anything away and one child policy and yada. There's one more question. I think we'll have this as the last question. And it is from Nicholas Allen Sharp. Diane, do you miss teaching? Do you think you'd like to get back in the classroom? Is this a former student?
No, a former co-teacher. He was with me at the New England Literature Program.
Oh, cool. You guys had the best jobs. That's so amazing. I'm so envious.
You can do it too. It still happens. I don't.
What about if you have kids? Can you do it?
Yeah.
Oh,
you can.
Okay.
I never did it with my kids, but you can do it. I don't know how you do it, but it's a very demanding job. But you can do it. I love teaching. I got to this point, I think I was teaching a creative writing class at the wrong time. I was like deep in the book. I had a 6-month-old. I was trying to finish this book. I wasn't deep in the book. I was trying to finish the book. And I was like having all of these feelings like, you don't even know you've never written a novel before. You don't know what you're doing. How can you be teaching these kids anything? They were all writing novels. I don't understand that. They're in college. I guess that's what you do in college now. And I think I got out of that class. I loved it because I love teaching, but I was just like, you can't teach for a while because you don't even know what the hell you're doing. And so I haven't taught since. I think I probably will again, but I don't know. It's a
I
lot.
think you'd be,
Teaching
it is a lot.
is a lot. It's really
Doing
hard.
all of that, doing anything while having a kid is a lot, but it sounded like, I mean, it sounds like a lot. Can you guys see me okay? Okay, I think my phone's just gonna die.
I think part of the teaching and writing thing is, now I can't see you, but I can hear you.
Oh, there we go.
The teaching and writing thing is, it's hard to be an expert, or that's not why we're teachers, but it's hard to be instructive on something that you sometimes don't feel like you understand yourself. And I know that that's something that makes good teachers. Like if you're honest about that kind of thing, that's a good thing. But I think there's this other element to teaching that I feel like I couldn't put the time into, like really like knowing, like, I don't know, just like having my hands in the world of writing enough to be a good teacher was hard for me when I was also trying to work. Because I think when I work, at least with writing this novel, I kind of stopped reading as much as I used to. It was really hard to do both. I found that so strange, and it wasn't the case with my stories, but with this it was. So I don't know. I like teaching. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah. I think also with teaching, it's like when I was teaching at SALT, which you were a student at SALT, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you were a SALT student. Like you, as a teacher, you want to be 100% in because these kids are 100% in their stories. It's this nonfiction course for radio, writing, and photography, or it used to be. And that they moved to Maine, students would move to Maine to work on a story, and they put everything in it. And as an instructor, you are expected to be available almost 24/7. So you want to be this great instructor.
Oh no.
No, no.
We love you, Mira.
I wish I could sub in now and just finish that sentence.
I bet she was just gonna say it's really hard. Oh, there she is.
Well, yeah. But anyway, I think we're kind of wrapping up in time anyway. Hopefully, Mira can finish her sentiment, but don't want to wait on her. So thank you so much for doing this event tonight and taking the time and sharing all of this with us.
Yeah, thank you so much for everyone who came. It was so nice to see your names here and get your questions. I love this. I really wish I was there and we could go to, I don't know, eat oysters and drink beer.
We'll do paperback part 2. Paperback comes out, can actually do it in person.
That would be nice. I hope that that ends up being a thing that happens. The paperback tour becomes much bigger for all the people who released books this year.
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, thank you everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. And again, there's a link in the chat box if you'd like to pick up a copy of New Wilderness. We have plenty in stock. And hopefully we'll see everyone again soon.
Okay, bye. Thank you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye.